homily and says he will speak a little in English and Italian, but wants to return to the words of the psalm, "Sing the wonders, a new hymn to the Lord, because he has done wonders for us, blessings that God continues to give to each one of us." Mystery. Of Peter, you called me for this mission, and I invite you all to walk with me as a community and as disciples of Christ who proclaim the gospel. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. With these words, Peter, questioned by the Master together with the other disciples about their faith in him, summarizes the heritage that the Church, through the apostolic succession in 2,000 years, has preserves, deepens, and transmits throughout the 2,000 years. Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. This is the only Savior and revealer of the face of the Father in him. God, to make himself close and accessible to men, revealed himself to us in the trusting gaze of a child, in the lively mind of a young man, in the mature features of a man, until he appeared to his own after the resurrection. With his face, his glorious body, he showed us thus a model of holy humanity that we can all imitate together, with the promise of an eternal destiny that surpasses all our limits and capacities. Peter, in his response, captures both things, the gift of God and the path to follow, in order to allow oneself to be transformed by it, inseparable dimensions of salvation entrusted to the Church, so that she may proclaim them for the good of the human race. Entrust them to us, chosen by him before we were formed in the womb, regenerated in the waters of baptism and beyond our limits, and without our merit, led here and sent from here, so that the gospel may be proclaimed to every creature. In particular, God, calling me through your vow to succeed the first of the apostles, entrusts me with this treasure, so that with his help I may be its faithful administrator for the benefit of the entire mystical body of the Church, so that it may increasingly be a city built on a mountain, an ark of salvation that sails the waves of history, a lighthouse that illuminates the nights of the world. This is not so much due to the magnificence of its structures or the grandeur of its buildings, like the monuments in which we find ourselves, but rather to the holiness of its members of that people that God acquired for himself, so that proclaim the wonderful words of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. However, at the root of the conversation in which Peter makes his profession of faith, there is also another question. We ask Jesus, "Who do they say the Son of Man is?" This is not a trivial question, but concerns an important aspect of our ministry. The reality in which we live, with its limits and its potentialities, its questions and its beliefs. Who do people say the Son of Man is thinking about the scene we are reflecting on? We could find two possible answers to this question that outline two different attitudes. Firstly, the world's response. God emphasizes that the conversation between Jesus and his followers about his identity takes place in the beautiful city of Caesarea Philippi, full of luxurious buildings situated in a natural and enchanting setting at the foot of the mountain, Hermon, but also home to cruel circles of power and the scene of betrayal and infidelity. This image tells us of a world that considers Jesus to be a person of no importance at all, a curious character who can cause admiration with his strange way of speaking and acting. And so when his presence becomes uncomfortable due to his moral demands and honesty, this world will not hesitate to reject and eliminate him. There is another possible answer to Jesus' question, that of the common people. For them, the Nazarene is not a charlatan. He is an unjust, courageous man who speaks well and says the right things, like other great prophets in the history of Israel. That is why they follow him, at least as long as they can do so without too many risks and inconveniences. But they consider him just a man, and so in the moment of danger during the Passion, they also abandon him and leave, disillusioned. What is striking about these two attitudes is their current relevance. In fact, they embody ideas that we could easily find, perhaps expressed in different language, but identical in substance, in the mouths of many men and women of our time. There are also many contexts today in which the Christian faith is considered something absurd, something for weak and unintelligent people. Contexts in which other certainties are preferred over it, such as technology, money, success, power, and pleasure. These are environments in which it is not easy to witness and proclaim the gospel, and where those who believe that they believe are ridiculed, fought against, despised, or at most tolerated and pitied. But precisely for this reason, they are places where the mission is urgent, because the lack of faith often brings with it tragedies, such as the loss of the meaning of life, the forgetting of mercy, the violation of the dignity of the person in its most dramatic forms, as the crisis of the family, and many other wounds from which our society suffers, and not a little our society. Even today, there is no lack of contexts in which Jesus, although appreciated as a man, is reduced to just a kind of charismatic leader, a superman. And this is not only among believers, but also among many baptized people who end up living at this level in atheism. In fact, this is the world that is entrusted to us, in which, as Pope Francis has taught us many times, we are called to bear witness to faith in Jesus the Savior in a joyful way. That is why it is also essential for us to repeat, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." It is essential to do this first of all in our personal relationship with God, with Him in the commitment to a daily path of conversion, but also, as a church, living together our belonging to the Lord and bringing the good news to everyone. I say this first of all for myself, as the successor of Peter, upon beginning my mission as Bishop of the Church in Rome, called to preside in charity over the universal Church, according to the famous expression of St. Ignatius of Antioch. He was taken in chains to this city, the place of his imminent sacrifice, and wrote to the Christians who were there, Then I will truly be a disciple of Jesus Christ when the world stops seeing my body." He was referring to the possibility of being devoured by the circus spheres, and so it happened, but his words evoke in a broad sense an indispensable commitment for those who exercise a ministry of authority in the Church, to disappear so that Christ may remain, to make oneself small, so that he may be known and glorified, to be completely present, so that no one may lose the opportunity to know and love him. May God grant me this grace today, and always with the help of the eternal intercession of Mary, Mother of the Church.